I do believe the way Facebook revolutionized PPC when they were growing, I do believe there's a similar situation happening with Amazon now. As brands sell on Amazon, I think them shifting budgets to this platform is like a natural fit to them.
This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome back to the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and today we're going back to basics with Amazon PPC. Advertising is a huge part of what we do at Bobsled Marketing for our clients on Amazon. It's really central to gaining momentum with new products, existing products, driving profitable growth, as well as reaching new customers on Amazon. And the ecosystem has really started to mature, especially over the last year or so, with Amazon's advertising campaign types, targeting options, and the reporting has really improved. The types of data and analytics we're able to get out of Amazon has really seen massive improvement and justified a lot more marketing spend going towards the platform. So I brought on Bobsled's advertising director today, Stefan Jordev, for a discussion at a more basic level, just going back to 101 basics with Amazon advertising to catch everyone up on how it's different to other performance marketing vehicles, the main principles of setting metrics. So if you're pretty advanced with Amazon PPC, this is probably not the episode for you, to be honest. We're talking about pretty simple concepts. But if you're looking for a refresher or you're new to the scene, this is going to be a great primer for you. So stick around if you're in that camp. And if you're already old hat at Amazon PPC, I'll catch you on the next episode. Just a quick note before we get started. I did try and position this as a 101 basics episode, but just Stefan and I got straight into some abbreviations around CPC. And just want to give you a heads up, if you're not familiar with that term, CPC stands for cost per click. We started talking about that as a metric to be looking at in terms of how competitive, the relative competitiveness of a platform. Typically, we see the cost per click go up as the platform gets more competitive. So just wanted to give that background before I roll the interview. Once we get that out of the way, we sort of realize what we've done and we go back to basics. But just a heads up there before we get started. So I'm here today with Stefan Jordev, who is the advertising director at Bobsled Marketing. Welcome back to the show, Stefan.
Hi, thanks for having me again, Kiri.
Yep, keep dragging you back. So today we're going to go back to basics, if you will, and do a Amazon Advertising 101 session just to, get back to basics, look at how far Amazon advertising has come as an advertising vehicle and some of the main principles that we use as an agency to manage brands' advertising campaigns on Amazon.
Sounds good.
So before we jump into like the strategies and what kind of metrics you should be looking at and how you should be thinking about keywords and all this stuff that we're planning to cover, let's talk a little bit about just how much digital advertising has changed in the last 10 years. 10 years, when we talk about it now, is going to seem like ancient history. When we go back and think Facebook advertising was not really even on the map yet, and we're using different types of ad platforms that we probably wouldn't think about using now. So, Stefan, you've been around in this scene for about 10 years. Tell us what digital advertising was back 10 years ago and how it's changed to today.
Thank you. Yeah, that's such a good question, Kiri. I'm trying to think back. And basically, when I try to remember how 2009 looked like, I think whenever we would see something related to SEO, whenever we would see something related to PPC, I think it was all about Google back then. I think a lot of brands were considering PPC as something that's exclusive to Google. And I do remember like all these courses, all these trainings, all these experts talking about Bing as well. But I think it was limited at the major search engines. Like you mentioned, I don't know the exact year, but I think 2009. I don't think Facebook was considered such a big player. And of course, they grew into the giant they are today a few years later. But I think if we're talking about 2009 in particular, it was mostly Google.
What else has changed around so that the platforms have changed? So Google was the big thing. It still is today, let's be honest. But we wouldn't really think about Bing so much as a search vehicle. Facebook is obviously enormous and lots of different ad platforms that have sprung up around that, including Instagram and WhatsApp. But now we also have the third horse in the digital advertising race coming up behind, and that's Amazon. And they're still a distant third to Facebook and Google now, but especially in the CPG and retail space, they're really starting to gobble up a lot of market share. So what is the effect of like having two big companies being the primary beneficiary of ad spend and then a small sort of competitor coming into the scene in terms of pricing and attention from a budget standpoint?
It's really interesting. I think the ad budgets for every platform grow by the year. Like you said, I think lately we're always reading about people shifting budgets to Amazon. But I think the distinction to be made here is I think in 2009, like we said, it was mostly Google. But I think there were also less people advertising and using PPC and even taking it seriously into their advertising within their marketing budgets and advertising objectives. I think people and companies and brands are using Google, Facebook, Amazon now, but they're spending more and there are new players coming into these scenes. I do believe the way Facebook revolutionized PPC when they were growing, I do believe there's a similar situation happening with Amazon now. As brands who sell on Amazon, I think them shifting budgets to this platform is like a natural fit to them. They are already selling there, so they might as well be investing there as well.
Yeah. And so on the established platforms over the last 10 years, we would have seen like cost per click increase pretty dramatically, right?
Yes, I think that is to be expected. That is what data shows, with more people competing for the same keywords, same target audiences, same sections. Cost per click has been increasing at Google, Facebook, and it is expected for us to see an increase in cost per click on Amazon ads as well.
So in the last 3 or so years, you've been running Amazon ad campaigns and overseeing our advertising team at Bobsled. Have you seen like a dramatic increase in CPCs on Amazon, or has it been pretty gradual?
I've seen an increase. I wouldn't call it dramatic though. There is an increase in cost per click rates. I think data shows it across pretty much all categories. But I think Amazon does its best to introduce these new placements, to introduce new targeting options. So far, the brands that are advertising on Amazon, there are some clever ways, some new features they can utilize and try and stay ahead of having too much competition for this particular space. Of course, the increase is inevitable, but I wouldn't consider it to be drastic at this point.
Okay, that's good to know. This is supposed to be Amazon Advertising 101, but we got kind of right into the CPC. I did ask. So if you're listening and you're wondering what a CPC is, CPC stands for cost per click, and it's one measure of like how much you're paying to get a customer to click through on your ad. And it's a metric of basically how affordable an ad placement is, and also a sign of how effective the ad itself is in some ways. But when we say that CPCs have been going up in the incumbent platforms, it's because there are more advertisers bidding on the same keywords now than there were 10 years ago. And because each of these platforms is based on an auction format, it means that if Stefan and I are both competing for the search term L'Oreal lipstick. We're both bidding on that. We're bidding against each other. And I'm saying my bid's going to be $1.50. And then Stefan's saying I'm going to do $1.55. And then I might go up to $1.60. And whoever has the best bid, they will win that placement. So the more competitors, the more other people who are bidding for L'Oreal lipstick, the higher the cost of each click is going to be. And so that's what we're expecting to happen over time on Amazon. But the other factor in there is inventory, which, as Stefan mentioned, if Amazon's opening up new placements, new ways to target shoppers, then that's actually increasing the amount of space that we can all bid on. And that actually keeps the cost of advertising lower for until they run out of possible permutation of ad types and targeting. Okay, well, let's move on to talking about in Amazon PPC. There are two main types of ad campaigns. We've got sponsored products and sponsored brands. So, Stefan, could you explain the difference between those two ad campaigns, where they appear, where they go, how you can target shoppers with them, just a general overview of those?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, these are the two main campaign types available for sellers. Vendors also have the product display type, but we're going to focus on these two. I definitely think most of the ad spend is going towards these two campaign types. Sponsored products are the oldest campaign type. They're basically promoting your listing, using your listing as a landing page. There, they can show up below the search results on Amazon's search page, or they can show on a product listing page towards the bottom when they have that section of sponsored products related to this item. They have been using keywords as targeting for a while now. Recently, Amazon also adopted an approach where you can target individual ASINs or categories with your sponsored product campaigns. So basically, advertisers can now make a choice if they want to be using keywords or ASINs to go after competitors and promote their listings with it. Sponsored brands, as the name suggests, their aim is mostly towards promoting your brand. And as a campaign type, they feature up to 3 products you have, and they can use your storefront as a landing page. Basically, you can input your own creative. You can include a link to your storefront and up to 3 products. They show up above the search results. So basically, you have total control of presenting your brand, presenting up to 3 products which you think are important as representation of your brand, or just products you want to push, or just products you have deals running for. But they're mostly used by brands who are looking to get more impressions, looking to get more people familiar with their brand. Just because their placement is above the search results, they're pretty much the first thing a user sees when he types in a certain keyword. So as opposed to sponsored products, sponsored brands are mostly used by brands who have their branding in mind, as well as ROI, as well as sales.
And sponsored brands are only available to brands who have gone through the brand registry process as well, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So if you're reselling other brands' products and you don't have brand registry, then you're only able to use sponsored products. So to talk through an example, and I love the recent changes that they made to sponsored products where you can target individual ASINs as well as keywords, because it used to be only keyword driven until very recently. Talk us through how you would use sponsored products to actually target a competitor ASIN or a category.
Basically, yes, you can either go for the category. So I'm going to use, if I'm selling a garlic press, this is an example everybody uses when they make an illustration. I don't know why. There seems to be an agreement within the Amazon advertising sphere. If I'm going after a garlic press, if I'm selling a garlic press, I can either find a category which is related to it. I can find a brand which sells these types of products, and I can just use the targeting refinement options to say I want to target this brand only. Or I can go in depth and I can do my own research, see which ASINs I want to go after. Ideally, these would be ASINs which are, higher priced items which do not have the same level of reviews you have. Basically, products you think you have competitive advantage of, and I would target those. So the most granular you can get is you can pick as many ASINs as you think are applicable, and you can go after those ASINs directly.
Cool. So if I'm looking at a complementary category for a garlic press, I might be looking at chef's knives, for example, and I could put chef's knives in as a category to target my sponsored products.
Absolutely. Anticipating what your target audience interests are, what your target audience next purchase might be, I think will make all the difference in the world. It's very obvious that you can go after products which are direct competitors to yours. But the example you just used, trying to anticipate how your target audience searches and where they might go next can give you that competitive advantage you're looking to get.
Okay, good. So then within sponsored products, we have different types of campaigns, again, manual and automatic. And as an agency, we use both manual and automatic for different reasons. Let's talk through when you'd use a manual campaign versus an automatic campaign for sponsored products.
So I think the main difference will be the timing, because in general, we start advertising with an automatic campaign. And experience has taught us that if you have a well-liked product, if you have a well-optimized listing, the auto campaign can be very profitable for you. But the reason we use it first is you can actually, when you pull a search term report, which is basically a report that Amazon provides for you, and it includes the actual query the customer typed in, clicked on, and led to a purchase. So you might as well be profitable from the very start. So you are going to be making sales at a profitable rate for you. But also, if you keep running your auto campaigns, you can keep pulling customer search terms, which work very well for you. And after a while, you're not only making sales, but you find yourself with a great list of customer search terms you can use as keywords in your manual campaigns, or you can just use as keywords to optimize your listing further. So I think the auto campaigns, which Amazon has, are just a great way to get started with advertising and to understand how your target audience searches, so you can refine your campaigns as you continue advertising this product.
Let me ask you a question about the secret Amazon algorithm, which of course you know everything about. How does Amazon know which keywords to add into those automatic campaigns? Where are they pulling those terms from?
Well, I think the most honest response would be nobody knows all the factors that Amazon considers when its algorithm.
Not even you.
Not even me. I know most of them, but not all.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Well, basically, I think when we build out a listing, our goal is to give Amazon as much data as possible. And basically, we use a category where we list our product. We use the title, we use the bullets, we use description, we use these non-visible search terms, subject matter. And basically, the goal is when we complete this listing, our goal is to give Amazon a clear picture about what this product is. And the way I see the auto campaigns running is they will start displaying these products in the same category your product is listed in. And they keep refining it. When you would get a sale on when your ad is being displayed on a certain product listing, or when you would get a sale for a certain keyword, Amazon uses this knowledge to refine your campaigns. But even in the beginning, if we've done a good job on the listing, Amazon has plenty of data sources to pick from. So it will know where to display our campaigns.
Got it. And do we ever see situations where there's in the search term report, which is a very rich place to go mining for information about how people are searching for your products and what they're doing and what search terms end up converting. Do we ever see keywords in there that are definitely not in the product description or title?
We do. I think, of course, this is not an ideal situation. We do not have control over all of these instances where Amazon would display our ads. Basically, we can get rid of these by using the negative keyword option. But when we launch a campaign, it is possible for us to see keywords which even we are wondering what Amazon was thinking. How did it get? Yeah.
Well, sometimes that can be a positive thing as well, because you might not have thought of a particular keyword as being relevant, but then you actually find lots of people are actually buying your product if they search for that keyword. So it could be, in some cases, you might not want your product to appear for a certain keyword, but in other cases, it gives you ideas that you haven't thought of before.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. Like, you can do a comprehensive keyword research, but once you start running the auto campaigns, you get a much, much clearer picture. That's the advice I always have. Let the data tell the story. Like you said, you might be convinced this keyword is not going to work for you, but if the data tells you otherwise, keep it running.
Great. So we would set these campaigns, like you said, the timing is important. So we set these campaigns up right at the beginning and we run them continually to continue that keyword harvesting process.
We do. We keep them running.
So what about manual campaigns? When would we set up manual campaigns and what does that cadence look like?
As a rule of thumb, we usually introduce the manual campaigns a few weeks later. And this is provided you've done your keyword research, you should have your own list of keywords which you want to go after, plus all these keywords that your auto campaign has harvested. And like I said, we keep both campaigns running simultaneously. There's no competition happening between them. And Amazon has a clear description of how they prevent cannibalizing the ad placements. Basically, they would just pick the one that you're bidding the most on. But we introduce the manual campaigns a few weeks later. We use the keywords which we think are important. We use the keywords which have already converted from us from the manual campaigns. And as a rule of thumb, we usually give it a slightly higher bid to make sure that we have more control over the placements of the manual campaigns compared to the auto ones running.
Great. And so with the targeting options that you mentioned earlier around category, keywords, targeting individual ASINs, do you set those types of campaigns up as automatic or manual campaigns?
Basically, keyword targeting, category targeting, and individual ASIN targeting campaigns, they all fall within the manual sponsored product campaign type. So a manual campaign type, but the process itself is very similar to how we would set up a keyword targeting campaign, and it's very straightforward.
Got it. All right. Well, we talked about keywords a little bit already and where to find some of them in the search term report in Seller Central. But let's talk about keywords from a general standpoint. Amazon, you can target competitor products and categories and things like that, but bidding on keywords is a really effective and core strategy for running PPC campaigns. So tell us about where else would you look for keywords? How do you assess the value of a keyword? How do you know which ones to spend lots of time and attention on versus those to ignore?
Yeah. Well, basically, people keep talking about keywords being important for Amazon advertising. My point is keywords are important for your Amazon listing and advertising within it. So keywords are the foundation of your listing, your title, your bullets, your description, the keywords you're paying for to target. Basically, everything seems to be around these keywords. And the good news is today, I think Amazon and other third-party software solutions, other PPC agencies, other consultants, there's so many ways to get keywords, so many ideas where you can combine what you have with listings you haven't possibly thought of. It's very easy to do a comprehensive keyword research. I just want to highlight the basis. Basically, Amazon's autofill, when you would start typing in a keyword idea within your manual campaign, Amazon offers a lot of suggestions which you can use as ideas to expand your keyword base. Beyond that, you can recently Amazon introduced brand analytics, a tool where you can actually search for a keyword and see which top 3 listings get the most clicks or conversions for a given keyword. This is available for pretty much every brand registered owner at this point. Basically, you can take a look at these competitors and see if you can get some keyword ideas. There's so many tools out there where if you include a listing of, let's say, 10, 20 keywords, they can expand it with suggestions of their own, accompanied with search volume. Now, this is debatable where they pull the search volume. Is it really relevant or not? But as an idea, you can actually get a lot of quality keywords, which you can use in your listing or in your advertising efforts.
Perfect. And I do love that brand registry tool, brand analytics. They've just added some more views to that, including demographics, which is sort of an unprecedented level of insight, in my opinion. So it's a really interesting place to dig around and look at, run through your top keywords and see which brands are actually getting the clicks for those search terms. Because if you just do sort of a share of voice analysis on the website, you can see, the order of all the products organically for a given search term. But this goes one step forward further and actually gives you the conversion rate for each of the top 3 products that get shown for a given search term. Excellent. All right. So keywords, we talked about keywords, we talked about campaign types. Let's talk about KPIs and how to measure whether your Amazon PPC setup is working and actually delivering results. So central to Amazon performance marketing is ACOS, or advertising cost of sales. And it's sort of a reverse calculation of what's used more commonly on other platforms, which is return on ad spend, or ROAS. So ACOS is something that everyone's looking at. I want to know, okay, if I'm spending $1 on ad campaigns, how much am I getting in sales from that? And so on Amazon, that is represented as a percentage. So if my ACOS is 10%, it means that I'm spending $1 to get $10 back in sales. So you want your ACOS to be lower, as low as possible. What other KPIs or metrics should we be looking at alongside ACOS, Stefan? Because ACOS only tells one side of the story, really.
Yes, it does. Of course, it's the most important one. I have complete understanding for sellers who are mostly interested in ACOS and ROAS. After all, that's a profitability metric. They're mostly interested with how much money they've made spending the budget we have spent. But Amazon offers a variety of metrics we can use. Basically, Amazon tries to make a connection between these and the actual customer stage, or stage of the customer journey a certain interested party might be. For example, impressions are tied to the awareness stage. People who've seen your ad, and a higher number of impressions obviously shows that more people have seen the ad you're advertising. And then, of course, there's the consideration stage where we would be looking at clicks or detailed page views, people who actually clicked on the ad and people who actually saw the product listing, the product we're promoting. Also, Amazon offers a lot of metrics which are supposed to give us a detailed overview of how we're doing between these stages. They have the click-through rate, which is basically a percentage of people who've seen the ad and clicked on it. Basically, it's just the clicks divided by the number of impressions we have. It also shows us, I think we mentioned this when we were taking a tour down memory lane, the cost per click as a metric of how much we're paying for a given click. So there are a lot of metrics which Amazon offers to help us get a clear picture of how profitable our advertising is, sometimes beyond just the sales we get from it. But like I said, it's very important to make a distinction between these metrics and the profitability metrics. And like you said, in Amazon's case, it's ACOS. Whenever a person goes in to see how much money they've made from advertising, how profitable their advertising campaigns are, they're looking at the ACOS.
Yeah. So this is something that we talk about quite a lot when we are speaking with clients and prospects and people interested in advertising is what should my ACOS be? And this question is a great opportunity to educate people on. There's one of two strategies that as a brand or as a company you might be aiming towards. They generally fit into two camps, but also may differ depending on the product or product set or something like that between your catalog. And that is profitability versus growth. And so for some more established brands, we could assume some of your products are going to be cash cow products where profitability is most important, and you know that you've either tapped out of that market or it's not a strategic priority for you to acquire market share. So you're interested in profitability as a primary advertising goal, and you want to set a target ACOS and say, we don't want our ACOS to go over this much. We know that we might not get as much reach because the ACOS is at a certain point. The target ACOS is at a certain point. The goal is profitability. The other goal is growth. And with a growth objective, you're less concerned about what the ACOS is compared with how many new eyeballs you're getting in front of with your advertising and with your ads. And so that's where, if we get that question, what should my ACOS be? The follow-up question is always going to be, what's your strategy? Is it profitability or is it growth or acquisition?
I totally agree, Kiri. It's basically, the foundation of it is very simple. Your ideal ACOS is equal to your profit margin or lower. If you're making 25% whenever you sell a product, if your ACOS is 25% or lower, you're making money. And that's the foundation of it. But like you said, I think every single account we've worked with can be put into these categories. They're either looking to grow or they're looking to optimize their advertising efforts. And basically, just like you outlined it, for the ones that are looking to optimize their efforts, they're always looking for lower ACOS. For people who are looking to expand their sales volume, they're looking to grow their account. These people are less concerned with ACOS. They're willing to accept a higher ACOS, knowing that the sales levels they would get would lead to, higher volume, higher number of reviews, higher number of ratings. So it will pay out eventually. But yeah, just the classification among the two types of Amazon sellers is one that I agree with.
Yeah, so that answer is intellectually makes sense. Giving someone the answer, it depends, is never actually satisfying. So
it is.
We have one rule of thumb, and perhaps you have something other views to add here, Stefan, but we have this rule of thumb of 20, as a ballpark average on Amazon, depending on the category, depending on seasonality, depending on how aggressive you are. Of course, there's so many it depends, but we're looking at an average ACOS of 25% if you look across all categories, seasons, holidays, everything. So that's a good benchmark for most people to be aware of, because if you say to me, my ACOS is 110%, then I kind of know that that's an issue unless you're being super, super, super aggressive. And then if you have an ACOS of 3%, I might say you might not be spending enough money on ads. You might not be aggressive enough. So I find that that's a more satisfying answer to give. But of course, it depends on the strategy, category, seasonality, etc.
Absolutely.
And there's another 25% rule, which we come back to as well. And it's that you want about 25% of your sales to come from ads and the rest to be organic. And I think that that's also an important metric for people to be looking at, is what percent of your sales is coming in organically through search results versus advertising. And again, it might vary based on how aggressive you're being with advertising. If you're a new brand with new products and no brand recognition, you might need to be spending much closer to 100% of your sales may come through ads in the beginning. But over time, for more established brands, and it's also a marker of how well you're doing with organic content and SEO, you want to be getting closer to that 25% number. Any other exceptions to those rules?
I mean, of course, there are exceptions, especially with all the different goals an advertising account may have. But I think what you just outlined is a great rule of thumb for people who are constantly questioning if they're investing enough and how much their advertising spend should be. I think within the frames of what you just outlined, if they have a good idea of how much their profit margin is, they should be able to easily navigate between those numbers and spend as much as they're comfortable with while getting a solid return on investment.
Great point. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good Amazon Advertising 101. It's helpful to get back to basics sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time again, Stefan, and I'll be seeing you around.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here.